Uh, as far as funeral arrangements for KEI'MANI, her arrangements are supposed to be at Dale Riggs Funeral Home. The last funeral home that was supposed to have, I guess, possession of her and or conduct the services, they've transferred allegedly the money over to Dale Riggs Funeral Home. Now, the news report says they have not gotten back, they have not received an answer pertaining to verification of those funds transferred over. But that's the latest information from the aunt of KEI'MANI, LATIGUE. So allegedly, Dale Riggs is supposed to have the services. They don't have a date yet. There's supposed to be a private funeral and also a public funeral. There's no date set on either one, and that's the latest developments. As for Darnell Jones, it is believed that he's still in uh, the hospital. There's no information that he's in either jail in Toledo or Cleveland. Here is the presser from the Children's Services. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $, the Ganji, 129 Cash App, stickers and chats are welcome during the live stream. Thank you for your time. Please check my community page for said updates and breaking news and polls. Thanks.
Thanks to Cal, the chair of the board of the Lucas County Children's Services. On behalf of my colleagues on the board, I want to once again extend our condolences to everyone who knew and loved KEI'MANI, the team. Losing her at the age of 13 is a community tragedy and leaves a hole that will never be filled. Our board, staff, and caseworkers feel any child's death to their core. We stand with you, heartbroken. We are so grateful to the Toledo Police Department for finding the alleged perpetrator so quickly. And we are grateful to the Lucas County prosecutors for the hard work that they are doing to investigate this matter. Their work to bring this person responsible for this heinous crime to justice is of a paramount importance and will assist them, and we will assist them in any way we can. KEI'MANI's death reminds us of how vulnerable children are. We pledge to redouble our efforts to protect them. Every step will rely on close relationships in the community. The task force created by Lucas County Commissioners is a good example of that. I know the community is closely following this. I think it's important that people understand that that my involvement, along with Robert Reese and Brenda Osborne, are subject matters experts whose job is to get this task force started. A wise selection of community members will eventually form the working task force. When we do the community, we will see a group of people who represent the whole community and share our values as it relates to protecting children. That's because we share the same goal, which is the best practice-driven child protection system that works with the community to keep children safe. We are ready to walk this path, and I will turn it over now to Executive Director Randall.
Thank you, Dr. Cal. As Dr. Cal indicated, my name is Randy Muth. I am the Executive Director of the Lucas County Children's Services Board. And Dr. Cal, I want you to know your thoughts on involved with the work of child protection here in Lucas County. The pain of KEI'MANI's death will never go away. We know that everyone who dedicates their life to this work shares the community's grief in the most personal way possible. I want to echo Dr. Cal's thanks to law enforcement and the Lucas County prosecutor for apprehending someone so quickly and working so diligently to ensure that the person responsible for his murder is brought to justice and held accountable for this horrific crime. I also want to thank the county commissioners, former Director Robin Reese, and others in our community for creating the task force to enhance the services we provide to children and our communities. Just as we have been hosting monthly listening sessions in the community, I believe this task force can facilitate additional avenues to support our families and their children, as always, with our community as a valuable and important partner. We all know that safety is a shared concern and activity. As Director of Lucas County Children's Services, I'd ask that you remember our staff as they go out into the community every day to provide services, safety, and supports to the complex dynamics of family need when social crisis occurs. I've seen how deeply this tragedy has affected them, and I thank them for their continuing compassion, work, and the heroism that they do every day. We're aware that the community is looking for answers. It's absolutely appropriate to do so, and the community is entitled to them. We want them to. To that end, we are conducting an internal review to see if anything could have been done or should have been done to prevent this tragedy. Immediately after I learned of KEI'MANI's murder, I asked the Ohio Department of Children and Youth, that's the state agency that has supervisory authority over all local county-level child protection agencies, to conduct a formal on-site review of the services we provide to this family and our policies, procedures, practices, and protocols as they were applied to this case. We'll be able to share the results of both of those reviews as soon as they're completed. So a little over a week ago, just 4 days after we learned of KEI'MANI's murder, we did release a timeline of our involvement. And you can find that on our website, lucaskids.net. It's the first thing that pops up when you go there. I'd like to cover some of the important aspects of that timeline with you now. So we received 2 separate allegations of excessive physical discipline by KEI'MANI's grandmother. The first was in December of 2023, 16 months before her murder. And the second was March of 2024, 12 months before her murder. Now you'll see on our website that we received 2 referrals in March of 2024. It's important to understand that those 2 referrals were made within hours of each other and they related to the same event. So there were not 3 separate investigations, there were just 2. One in December of 2023, one in March 2024. Prior to those 2 referrals in December of 23 and March of 2024, the last involvement we had with KEI'MANI occurred in 2011 when she was an infant.
I'm going to interject right here. So what happened in 2011? Why not tell us what happened? Because you want to explain to us the 2 other incidents of someone calling in, a teacher. So you go back to 2011, people want to know what was your involvement with the child in 2011. This is allegedly when she was born, 2011, because right now we're at 25, so she'll be 14. So what happened in 2011? What was your intervention involvement? Who called? Who made the report? What was the report about? And what happened? Because as I said, after this commentary, I'm going to go over TIARA'S interview, the bio mom, and I got a funny feeling that whatever she said in that interview on YouTube is not going to coincide with what you have in your report in 2011. Just my public opinion.
Further, at no point in our involvement with KEI'MANI was there any mention of Darnell Jones by anyone in the family, by anyone involved with the family, or by anyone associated with the schools. Again, as I said, both investigations alleged that grandmother had used excessive physical discipline. Those investigations were initiated on the very same day that we received the calls. Both investigations involved reviewing the family record, including identified family members, speaking directly with the persons who made the reports, a physical inspection of the home and the living conditions, speaking with the child alone, Speaking with collateral sources, these are people who know the family but don't live in the home. Doing background checks, application of state-mandated family assessment and safety assessment tools, and then sending letters to the mandated reporters when our investigation was complete.
Now, where people are going to have a problem, that this is what you either believe or don't believe. In Tiara's interview, she claims that her mother didn't raise any of the children that she had, okay? She had several children, and they all were in foster care, I think except for one baby boy. So if you did a background check on Dorothy and other participants' parents, then you should also have information in your database that Dorothy didn't raise any of her children, so why would you all have given her custody of KEI'MANI? Stay woke, everybody. But allegedly, Tiara says no state was involved in the custody switching around and switcheroo. But as I said before, the state was involved at some point in 2011. Why? What was that about? So see, that's why I said there's discrepancies in all of this. Because as I've told you before, a person's version to YouTube is not the version you're going to get from this guy and his representatives. Everybody's going to have a different version of this and that. And something right now is not adding up. Something is not adding up.
In both investigations, both KEI'MANI and her grandmother stated that the household consisted of just them. Neither mentioned Darnell Jones, neither identified him as a father of the child, and neither said that he was a support for the child or the father. And again, none of the referral sources nor the collateral sources we spoke with ever mentioned a father nor mentioned Darnell Jones. No record exists which establishes paternity of KEI'MANI, not with Darnell Jones nor with any other person.
This right here is mind-blowing. Here's a man that's been going around a said child who's being abused by her grandmother. I don't doubt that Dorothy was still abusing the child up until death. And here you have in a press release that Darnell was never proven to be the father. Why not? So Dorothy, we're going to talk to you since you just got custody of her last August, per information from your daughter. Why was Darnell never put on child support? Because Tiara tells us she was on support. She was behind a little bit, $2,600 in a hole. And I'm trying to understand if she's saying that Darnell is the father, so everybody can quit asking and hypothesizing. Tiara says that he is the daddy, but he has not been proven paternity. So then we can go in the book and either say, well, is she telling the truth? And why hasn't he been put on paternity, proven as the father? And why was he not paying child support to Dorothy? Why was it just Tiara? Stay woke, everybody.
There was, back in 2011, an alleged father who was excluded by genetic testing. Subsequent to that, though, there's been no efforts that we can discover to identify a father of KEI'MANI.
Wow, wow, wow.
At the conclusion of both those comprehensive investigations, a team decision was made where it was determined that it would be inappropriate to ask the juvenile court to remove KEI'MANI from her current caregiver. That team decision was made by the supervisor of the caseworker and in consultation with those documents and tools that I indicated.
Now that we know that several people make a decision as far as removal from a family or person, how do you all feel now knowing that you all made the decision to allow KEI'MANI to stay in the house? You're going to hear that KEI'MANI did not feel like she was in danger. They spoke to her alone, but she's now dead. And to me, all this BS in this presser is just fancy talk. Big words. We care about the children of Toledo. That doesn't mean anything because we're talking about a dead person right now. She can't talk. She can't tell us anything. So all we got to go on is he said, she said, friends, journals, what's in her cell phone, blah, 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 blah. Now, I won't doubt that somebody's probably been in the phone erasing all type of stuff. But hopefully there will be a search if need be, the FBI, whomever, who will go in the phone and do a deep dive of KEI'MANI's phone and other people's cell phones, iPads, so on and so forth. But all this stuff from Lucas County is BS. We hear the same BS every time a child dies or there's a severe case of child abuse. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. And if you ever notice, DHS has always been called in each case. Have you noticed that? There's always been somebody who suspected something, said something, called DHS, called the school, said something to the parent, but nothing was ever done. And once again, KEI'MANI fits into this loophole.
I think it's important to understand that almost no decision here at Lucas County Children's Services is made by one person alone. Instead of...
Are these people still working, sir? That's what we want to know. What are you doing about the people who made the decision? The social workers, the supervisor. Where's the damn supervisor? That's who I want to hear from. I don't want to hear from the chair, board, and all those people. Yeah. I don't want to hear from the executive, assistant executive. We want to hear from the supervisor. We want to hear what you thought, what you said. Not some fancy guy in a suit and some black lady sitting up here in her nice, good clothes. I don't want to hear from y'all. I want to hear from the supervisor and the social workers. Let's hear from the people that made the decision. How about that?
Of seeking or asking the juvenile court to remove KEI'MANI from the care of her grandmother, we provided short-term services and referred the family to other community supports. Again, our last referral of child abuse or neglect with respect to KEI'MANI was received on March 21st, 2024, more than 1 year prior to her murder. I'm aware of the media reports in which community members have stated that they have called us multiple times and that additional reports were filed perhaps during the 2024-2025 school year regarding KEI'MANI's care. This is a concern to us here at Lucas County because I want to be clear. We have no record of any call from a mandated reporter or community member for an entire year prior to her murder.
So now we have information that March 21st, 24 was the last report, second report that went in pertaining to child abuse. And as you see, nothing was done. And then other people said they called. Who are those other people? Do they have verification? Did they, do they have phone records to show that they called DHS, filed a report, got any type of number? And he says there are no other calls and records. Is everybody paying attention? So now you're saying the people lied, the other people. Who are these people? How many people are we talking about that called this abuse hotline? Lord have mercy, I'm dead.
We have no record of anyone from Toledo Public Schools ever calling us with respect to KEI'MANI. We have no record of anyone calling us ever with concerns about Darnell Jones. Therefore, I'm asking anyone who believes that they may have called Lucas County Children's Services regarding KEI'MANI within the past year, please call our Family Center hotline. And that number is at 419-213-3833. That's not the Child Abuse Prevention Hotline. That's the Family Center hotline, 419-213-3833. Let us know when you think the call was made. Let us know who you think you called. But most importantly, let us know what number you called from. When we get that information, we'll work together with you and our telephone provider to figure out what happened. Then we'll report the results of that investigation back to the community. So mandated reporters are vital to our system. Last year alone, we received 13,000
Two different numbers.
of child abuse and neglect. 9,000 of those came from mandated reporters. That's 70%. Because of that, we'll be reaching out to our mandated reporters starting very soon to discuss the reporting process and hear any feedback that they might have. Specifically, I'll be up and is 419-213-2273. And then 2273 is CARE. So it's 419-213-CARE. It can't be deleted by anyone at the county or state level. It's there forever. The second thing is that it links the child with all of the past history of that family, including persons identified as a family member, any past reports, and whether or not any county has current involvement with this family.
Did other people call 24 to 25 pertaining to KEI'MANI LATIGUE? And will they have the verification? Will they share it with the public as he is saying here? Because this is all interesting information. That there are people saying that they did call, and this man is saying no one called. Who is telling the truth? And will it be revealed? And now he's saying that it can't be erased. Well, calling now won't matter, sir. She's dead. So you have to go back in your call logs to verify if someone called. But right now, someone calling doesn't mean anything because the child is no longer alive. This is all disappointing to me. All of this goes in one ear and out the other with Queen. That's the reason why, as I said, I don't like talking about children's stories, because everything is repetitive. Everything is mushy, mushy, mushy for television effects, but it has nothing to do with the dead person. It has nothing to do with the dead person. This is stuff that you're supposed to say. We care. We're sorry. We're going to build a task force. To do what exactly? A task force to do what? I said this the other day, that Department of Human Services should have private investigators just like the state's attorney's office has. The state's attorney's office have investigators to help with their cases. Well, DHS, you should do the same. And maybe you won't be sending these kids back with these low-down parents and guardians. As I said, if you sit outside and watch, you can see all you need to see. You can learn a lot just sitting in a car and watching people come in and out of doors. Pop-up visits. It's nonsense.
And that's irrespective of the county that created these documents. This is a statewide database. So when you call, so if somebody had called with KEI'MANI, we would automatically know everything there is to know in that system about her and all of that, but only if it's referred to that child abuse hotline. Then the system establishes and tracks when certain actions are required and completed. For example, under certain circumstances, we're required by law to respond within 1 hour. What starts that clock is that call to our child abuse hotline. It starts that 1 hour clock, and it starts a tracking mechanism so that we know that we have complied with statute, law, and best practice. More than that, it also enters this into an aggregate database that I can access management reports and that administration can use to make sure that we're following the law and adhering to best practice. So I'll be emphasizing that. The last thing is that, well, I guess not the last thing, but another thing is that I want all our mandated reporters to understand that the law requires us to send a letter at the conclusion of the investigation. As you guys know, because you've heard me say this a million times, child welfare records are confidential. When you call me, unfortunately, I can't comment for the most part. There's a narrow exception in that law for mandated reporters. The law says that when we do an investigation, we must send a letter to every mandated reporter that makes a referral and tell them 4 things. Whether we initiated an investigation regarding the report, whether we're otherwise involved with the family, the statement as to the general status and health and safety of the child, and whether the investigation resulted in the filing of a complaint in juvenile court. So I'll be asking mandated reporters to look for those letters. If you don't get one, give us a call.
One was, sorry about that, everybody, I'm buffering. Ma'am, school teacher that called, you're a mandated reporter. Did you get a letter pertaining to KEI'MANI's decision? I can't wait to hear the results from that. And did the other person, did they get a letter as well stating the results of the investigation? And usually when you call to file a report about child abuse, they give you a referral number for your complaint. And after so many days, weeks, or whatever, you can call back and get a result to that complaint. Did you all know that? DHS complaints, also Adult Protective Services. You get a referral number and you can call back to get the result. But usually if you're still seeing the people walking around, the children, the adult that's in need, you usually have your answer. Nothing has been done. Bingo card. That's probably why people didn't call back. Although you all are saying that people did. But if I see the child is still with their mother, their father, their grandmother, then I know, hell, ain't no need of me calling back. Because you all ain't done a damn thing. So is that what really happened? People who called realized KEI'MANI was still with the grandmother, so they decided not to call. And maybe people started passing the message on to other people saying, don't call because they ain't gonna do a damn thing. She's still there, and that's the final result. Wow.
Finally, I'll be asking mandated reporters that at any time during your involvement with the child, if you get the letter and it just doesn't make sense to you, if you don't hear from us, or if anything just doesn't make sense, please call our Family Help Center hotline. We want to be responsive to our mandated reporters, but more importantly, we want to be sure that we're doing everything that we can do to support the community in its mission to make the community safe for every child. Justice for KEI'MANI starts with the conviction of the person responsible for this terrible crime. And it continues with the community coming together to protect vulnerable children. With that, I'll take questions, but remember the statutory authority I have to disclose details which would otherwise be confidential is narrow. And beyond that, I'm simply not going to say anything that I believe would in any way jeopardize obtaining criminal accountability for KEI'MANI's murder.
You've probably seen or imagined a teacher with an adventure falling in. So is your belief that you believe in your records that you do not have record of that teacher ever falling? Is that correct?
We do have a record of that teacher calling. Again, let's be clear on what I said. We do acknowledge that the community called in 23.
That teacher is one of those in 23, 24.
Yes.
Okay. Which one was that?
I can't go that deep. I just will say that we have confirmed that those calls occurred.
Let's go here. Here's our confusion.
Of that teacher calling. Again, let's be clear, to be confidential is narrow. And beyond that, I'm simply not going to say anything that I believe would in any way jeopardize.
So he's saying they got the teacher's call. But then the community means that would be somebody else.
We do have a record of that teacher calling. Again, let's be clear on what I said. We do acknowledge that the community called in December of 2023.
That teacher is one of those in 23, 24.
Yes.
Okay.
23, 24.
Which one was that?
I can't go that deep. I just will.
So now he don't want to tell us which year it was that the teacher called, if it was 23 or 24. And that's what people are going to want to know. Two people called. One's a mandated reporter. That's the teacher. So who's the other person? And when did each one call? Did the teacher call in 23, 24? This fella here, he don't want to say. Okay. Then what is the point of this fucking press conference?
We'll say that we have confirmed that those calls occurred.
Shh.
Yes.
And so you're saying that nobody between March of 24 to present, September, has ever called and never given you any information?
That's correct. There is no record of any call.
So nobody else called after March 21st, 2024, up until her murder this year. Now I want everybody to think about that. And as I said before earlier in this live, I won't doubt Dorothy was probably still abusing the girl, and the girl probably didn't want to leave. She probably wanted to leave, but she knew she didn't want to be in foster care and going from house to house. And see, that's what people need to understand about children. Some children, they can't wait to get out the house. They don't care where they go. They just want out the house from the abuser. But then some kids, they want out, but they also are scared to go to a different place. So when they're asked, hey, do you feel safe in this house? Do you fear for your safety? They just go ahead and say, yeah, they're kind of mean, but yeah, I'm okay. And maybe that's the reason why she was still in the house. She didn't tell them. And see, we don't even know how long Darnell was coming around. When did he show? Was he touching her, or was it just a one-time event of sexual assault? See, we don't know anything. And like they said, there ain't nobody to tell us nothing. Because I don't expect Dorothy to tell us nothing. And I don't know if or anybody of her situation with Darnell. But she did tell one friend that she and the mother, she said, so she and the grandmother were fighting like grown women. This ain't good.
That's why I've asked the community to come forward if they believe they called within the last year. And if they can tell us, sometimes they can say, yeah, here's when I went on the website and this is the number I called. If it's our child abuse hotline, then we know that's probably where it went. They may have called somewhere else. If that's the case, then I want to know what happened, and we'll look at what procedures or policies we can change. But that's the purpose of me telling mandated reporters, please, it's so important that when you call, use our child abuse prevention hotline. I believe that our carrier will be able to tell us when we receive calls. I will say that with our child abuse hotline, there are additional safeguards and additional redundancy that applies.
Question for you about grandma. Did grandma have kids in her care, and did she have kids from her care?
Yeah, unfortunately, that exceeds the statutory authority I have. I can only talk about this particular case.
Okay, because I've heard concerns from people that were children taken.
Hold on, let me hear that again.
Redundancy that applies.
Question for you about grandma. Did grandma have kids in her care, and did she have kids from her care?
Yeah, unfortunately, that exceeds the statutory authority I have. I can only talk about this particular case.
So that goes back to what I just mentioned earlier. He's asking about kids in her care, Dorothy's care beforehand, which would be Tiara and her siblings. And this representative is saying he can't go back that far and give information. He can only give recent events pertaining to Dorothy and KEI'MANI. Well, the cat is out of the bag. Tiara has come to YouTube to tell the world that she was in foster care up until about the age of 19 years of age. And other siblings were also in foster care because they were abused by Dorothy. As she put it, she was bruised, bloody, and beaten at 2.5 years of age when rescued.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm only allowed to talk about KEI'MANI's case.
Did she deny that there was any abuse in this 23 and 24 interaction? Can you describe to us what she was saying to your investigators?
You use the term abuse, which is actually a legal term. Grandmother did indicate and did admit that she had used physical discipline.
And was KEI'MANI okay with it?
I think KEI'MANI stated she understood the reason for it, but I don't know that she was okay with it.
I don't know if she was okay with it. Well,
yes, KEI'MANI indicated on both occasions and to school officials that she felt safe in the home.
And how do you parse that out with
well, she's dead now.
adults in the room and there may be other external pressures? How do you parse out that kid is really telling you what he or she really feels and just isn't worried about that person standing in the corner of the other room?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why we speak with the child alone, and I understand that might be different than speaking elsewhere. We also, that's why we look at other collateral sources, look at other statements that the child has made. We ask her what her supports are, and then we follow up with those.
The grandmother has said before that, she was corrected in how to properly handle situations like this, and she said that she was told, one swat on the butt. Is that something that a caseworker or anyone would ever tell a guardian that that's appropriate?
Lucas County Children's Services does not endorse, and we don't recommend the use of any corporal punishment. However, Ohio law does state that that is a decision that is reserved to the parents, and that if parents decide in using their exclusive judgment to use corporal punishment, we do provide guidance on how to do that. And we would say to use, if you have to do that, use an open hand on a non-sensitive area. Don't leave marks, don't use an object.
Use it on a non-sensitive area. Oh my goodness. The stupidest thing I've ever heard. You mean an area that's not seen by the public, which is your bottom, correct? That's what you meant. We don't recommend physically putting your hands on your kid, but if you must do it, please put it on a sensitive area. So a social worker told her, Dorothy, to spank KEI'MANI on her bottom. Well, let me tell you something about that, sir. You can be beat on your bottom hard enough to where you can't sit down. How about that? Blistered up to where you can't sit down. So it doesn't matter if you're hit in the face, in the mouth, in the ear, in the head, back of the throat, front of the throat, on your shoulders, in your back, on your butt, on your legs, on your calves. Pain is pain. Checkmate.
Yes.
Was there anything that was required to be like a criminal history?
There were not.
If dad was part and whatever it surfaced that conversation or if it came up, would that have made your
Let me go back to what she said. Sorry, it's so low. I don't know why it's so low.
Don't use an object.
Was there any sort of background check?
Don't use an object.
Yes.
Was there anything that raised any flags to like a criminal history?
There were not.
I didn't hear that.
We do provide guidance on how to do that. And we would say to use, if you have to do that, use an open hand on a non-sensitive area. Don't leave marks, don't use an object.
Was there any sort of background check done?
Yes.
Was there anything that raised any flags to like a criminal history?
There were not.
dad was part and whatever it surfaced that
I can't hardly hear.
would that have made your work any different? Would the caseworker have handled it any differently if dad was listed or mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. If there's a father that's identified,
Exactly.
we have to talk with all the principals in the case. So identified can be two ways. One, established as the father in the case, and we have a record of that. Or the child can identify somebody that they view either as a father, an alleged father, or an actual father. So if either one of those things had happened, if our database had indicated we had an identified established father, we would have been required to reach out to that individual. If the child had identified, hey, this gentleman is dad, or he is a support, or I view him as dad, we would have reached out. Those did not occur in December or March of last year.
So that means Darnell was never put on paperwork or birth certificate or even anything identifying this child's life, such as school records, DHS reports, DHS business, state business, such as welfare, child support, nothing. Let me make that clear. He has not been identified as being a father to this child except for word of mouth by Tiara, the mother. But he is not on any government paperwork, birth certificate as an identifying factor as a parental person related to this girl child. Why not? So that's why you have to go back in the book of life to say, When did the child realize that Darnell was her father? When was she told? Number one. How many times did he come around the child? When did he start abusing the child? Did the child ever tell anybody that Darnell was touching her inappropriately or insinuated that he was touching her inappropriately? This is fucked up.
That have changed what you would have done when it comes to placement with her if that had surfaced?
No, I suppose it depends on what we would have learned. From whoever was identified as dad. But no, I mean, we determined that that placement there was appropriate. All the basic needs of the child were being met. She was getting all of her sustenance, her housing conditions were fine. Her school and medical conditions were being met. So the presence of a father would not have caused us, I think, to recommend to the juvenile court that they change custody or placement.
Well, we already know that a non-mention of a daddy wouldn't do anything to keep her from getting out of Dorothy's care, because Dorothy wasn't fit in the first place because she didn't keep her kids, and you all didn't hold that accountable for her to get KEI'MANI. So we already know a mentioning of a man, a non-man, don't even matter. You put her in the care of a woman who didn't keep none of her own damn kids. And probably the state took them, or she gave them up to the state willingly. Checkmate. Stay woke, everybody. And then you have 2 reports of child abuse allegations. And then you're telling the woman what to do, how to act, how to treat the kid. Don't beat the kid on the bottom. Don't show no marks. But abuse is abuse. Mental, physical. For all we know, she was calling her names. We have the mother telling us that she's come out gay, that she didn't like boys. So imagine the grandmother probably saying things to her nasty. And we don't have to use certain type of language to, for gay slurs, but you all see where I'm going. So it's more than just physical abuse, sir. You all left that baby with this mutt. And then another mutt was coming in, probably doing things to her, which was to jump off of that night. She was left alone. And she probably was scared to tell people the truth that she's being molested and she's being physically abused by the grandmother because she didn't want to go into state's care. This is BS.
In March and in this 23 and 24 interaction, how did mom come into play? Was she notified? Was she discussed?
Again, that I can't go into.
So, sometimes you'll respond within an hour or so of hotline call.
Yeah.
Both of those need to be described some of the occasions where that. Well,
Yeah, if the allegation is that the child is in immediate risk of serious physical harm. No, that point's been brought up, and that's a great point, and I understand that. We respect the family's ability to determine what's best. In fact, we encourage families to come together without the assistance or interference of the state of Ohio or Lucas County to do what is in the best interest of their family. We're not going to second guess whether a child is moved 2 times, 3 times, or 6 times. As long as the child educational needs are being met, then we trust the families to make those decisions.
Well, see, that's the gist of this story, why we're here today. The child was allegedly attended 6 schools in her short time on earth, 13 years of breathing. So everything you're saying, once again, doesn't mean anything. Because she was not in the best care by anyone. Her biological mother, obviously, who I believe is downplaying the real reason that the child was taken from her, moved to the godmother, then moved to Dorothy. None of this makes any sense. And the fact that Tiara herself was in foster care from 2.5 up until the age of 18, 19 should tell you something, that people just don't want foster care children. They want newborns, is what has been told to the public. that people prefer to adopt newborn babies. You know why? Because newborn babies can't talk. They don't have an itty bitty identity. They don't tell you, no, stop, leave me alone. I don't like that. You all see where I'm going with this? Because you always have to ask that question. Why are children being shifted around, shuffled around at a young age in foster care? Because the people are tired of them. Because they can't conform them. Because they can talk. Isn't that right? And I'm sure KEI'MANI knew that. I'll just go wherever they send me. I'm sure she's not want to go into foster care. She's probably heard the stories. She probably heard things from her own mother, what it was like being in foster care. And I'm sure she thought about that. I don't want to end up like that. And as you get older, you definitely don't want to be in foster care because you have built friends. You've built allies. And you don't want to move school to school, school to school as you get older. That's possibly why she told the DHS worker everything was fine at Dorothy's house when it was not fine. And we now know it wasn't fine because she's dead. So even if Dorothy's not involved in the actual murder, she was still in harm's way because she's dead. Double-edged sword. Dorothy wasn't good for her, and neither was this Darnell person. Checkmate.
Yeah, well, anytime that we believe that the child is in imminent risk of physical harm, or, well, let me back up. So if we believe that, we have two courses open to us. We can make a determination as to whether we believe the family can and will work with us and ensure the safety of the children. If the answer to that question is yes, then we'll try to work with the family before going to court. If the answer to that question is no, that despite the reasonable efforts that we have made, this family or this child remains at risk, then we have to go to court. It's important to understand, Lucas County Children's Services, no children's services agency in Ohio can remove children. We're the only ones who can. Police officers can, courts can. What we have to do in that circumstance is take those facts to a neutral, impartial magistrate or judge, and that neutral or impartial magistrate or judge makes those determinations.
I want to get into a little bit of the history from us. So when she was born, was she put into foster care originally?
Again, unfortunately, my reading of the statute, which I'll provide you a copy, does not allow me to go back further than that, just to say a timeline of the history. I'm allowed to talk about the timeline of the events that were relatively close and involved the current caregivers, but caregivers that weren't involved with this, I just can't go that far back.
Okay, so can you tell us that when she was put into care of grandma?
No, because I, all we have are statements from family members. I don't have any, there's no documentation as to when that occurred.
Wow. So how can you aid in care? You don't know anything. Lord have mercy.
Another thing we addressed is brought up, thoroughness. When you interacted with her in 24 and 23, people have concerns about thoroughness. Was everything done? Was it the cursory check? Was it a quick one? Do you feel comfortable with the thoroughness that the caseworkers went through in both of those instances?
Absolutely. There's, this is one of the, this is a case that both of these assessments, I look back and I say, there's nothing I say which we'd have done differently. We did everything that you would expect that is consistent with best practice. We went out, we initiated the very same day. We went out, we talked with everybody. We found 2 collateral sources. We applied a family assessment, risk assessment, safety. We talked with the child. We looked through the entire house and saw no evidence of anyone other than the 2 people who said that they lived there. So no, I am confident. I'm confident in my own judgment that these were 2 exceptional and comprehensive assessments of risk. I don't want to speak on behalf of the state, but I have to believe, based on my 18 years as a director, that when the state looks at this, they'll agree as well. But I want them to make that independent judgment.
Well, you all are going to agree because it's how it looks. It looks bad on the state's behalf, okay? That several people made a decision to leave KEI'MANI in this house with Dorothy 2 separate times, okay? Talking about 2 separate times from one season to the next. And that's where there's a problem. 6 months or so in between, you should have known better. That meant the abuse never stopped. So you should have removed her. Because now you got to ask, who are the people who called? You got one as a teacher. Did the teacher call again? Is the teacher the same person that made the second report? This is where we have a problem. The close proximity in the timeline of calling. And now you're sitting here saying, I believe the state would make the same assessment and agreement that this was the right decision to leave her in the care of Dorothy. Well, we can look back and say, no, it was not the right decision. And we can say this in so many other cases where you all have to give press conferences. You didn't make the right decision. When somebody called, somebody made a police call, teacher called, Pookie called, Ray Ray called, Bubba called, Mary called, you did not make the right decision. I don't give a damn about the state agreeing. The state is going to agree because it makes all of you all look good. But in the end, it doesn't matter because she's dead. What is it that you don't understand about that? She's dead. She's not coming back. So it don't matter if all of you all in this fucking state office get together and stand in a line and say, we made the right decision. What does that have to do with the dead kid? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, you'd have to ask the state.
Yeah, well, he can't ask the
I
state.
made the request, but the first level at the state has agreed to endorse it, but they don't have that authority. They're seeking final authority, but I don't have it.
I'm going to stop right here because the bullshit is making my head hurt. I was going to get a good caption of this man speaking. Hold on, because this is all nonsense
All
to
we
me.
have are statements from family members. I don't.
The family don't count because that's who had her, and that's the reason why we're here today. I want to hurry up and get on with my commentary because I'm almost an hour in. We're going to go back in time to an interview done by Tiara last week on YouTube, and I'm going to hurry up and skim over what she mentioned in that interview on YouTube. Feel free to go to my community page to check out the said interview. Tiara has made it known that Dorothy texts herself in imaginary conversations. You either believe it or you don't. She says she knows about phones and how to work apps and different things. She also said she found her mother dumping Tiara's clothes in a park the same day she came up to inquire about her daughter missing, dead. What in the world was really going on? What really happened to KEI'MANI? Did Dorothy come home and find the child in a compromising position with Darnell? But if so, wouldn't he have killed both of them? Was she pimping this little girl out? We do have they pimp their children out. They do sell their children to grown men. Is there going to be some proof that Dorothy was selling the girl out to men? What's the truth? What role did Dorothy play in this murder of this said child? Tiara says police won't return her phone calls. She's been calling and inquiring about the investigation pertaining to her daughter, but naturally they're not going to return any calls to Tiara because she was not the legal custodian or guardian of the said child. We learned also that Tiara didn't have the daughter from birth to 1.5 years old in her interview. So who had 1.5 years of age. She starts off this commentary saying that her adoptive mother did not want her taking the baby to see Dorothy. And then when she took the baby to see Dorothy, the adoptive mother became jealous or angry and turned on her and called DHS. So I'd like to know, did she know Dorothy abused her and that she had other children that were also removed from her care, and that's why she didn't want her to take KEI'MANI to see her? She also tells us that then Dorothy turned on her and added on to the he said, she said gossip, and that's how her child got removed. But what doesn't make any sense about that is she says the child was removed from her at the hospital. Well, how did you get to the hospital with KEI'MANI for the child to be removed out your care? See, there's a gap in Tiara's story if you listen to the YouTube video. It doesn't make any sense. You go from the adoptive mother being jealous, then you say he jumped in on the bandwagon, making allegations as well. And then when you were at the hospital, the baby was removed. They told you don't come back to the hospital. The baby won't be there. You'd be there on trespassing. They'll put you on trespassing. And then you said they set you up and said you didn't come back to feed the baby. Well, why would they have your baby in care? See, I'm woke. What is the old saying? Let people talk, they'll tell on themselves. You just told on yourself in your own interview where that YouTuber's telling everybody not to judge you. I'm going to judge you because why would the police tell you or the hospital tell you don't come back? Then they say, oh, yeah, she didn't come back to feed the baby. Well, why would they have the baby in the first place for her to need to go back to feed the baby? Stay woke, everybody. Queen's woke. Were you abusing your child, ma'am, and something happened terrible to the baby where the baby needed to be in the hospital's care, and you left that part out of your interview because there's a big hole in that version you gave? Why would the godmother be jealous of you and the baby? Help me understand, because I don't understand any of that. Why didn't the godmother give you the baby when she got the baby? Excuse me, the adoptive mother was jealous of her allegedly, which don't make no sense. Okay, so then we get information that the baby ended up going to the godmother. Excuse me if I'm getting y'all confused. We've got an adoptive mother who was jealous that started this BS to get KEI'MANI removed in the first place. So then we learned that the godmother got the baby somehow, which don't make no sense, because then we also hear in this commentary that they were involved with the baby as soon as the baby was born. So is that how the godmother got the baby? The state got involved for the child abuse, original child abuse case, and then the godmother stepped in and said, I'll take the baby. And then we learned that the godmother, she got rid of KEI'MANI at 6 or 7. So this is what I understand about the godmother. Why didn't you ask Tiara to take the baby back? Did you ask to give her back? And then Tiara said, well, I'm not ready. I'm not in a good place. What's the truth to that? Because see, I didn't hear anything about that, which that's a hole in the story too. Why didn't the godmother offer KEI'MANI back to Tiara? Somebody's lying here. Somebody is lying. So then we learned the baby then goes to Dorothy at 6 or 7. We also learned that Tiara was never told until the little girl was almost 11. So she's been in the care for years with her own mother and didn't even know her mother had the kid. And then we got to ask that question. When you were talking to the godmother, weren't you asking about your child? Hey, can I see her? Can I talk to her? What was she telling you? Then you tell us that she stopped speaking to you or blocked you too. Some type of nonsense. What was that all about? Then we learned that the mother was blocking her own mother, Dorothy. So why is everybody blocking Tiara? Help me understand. Then you moved to Cleveland at some point. When did you move to Cleveland? Why did you move to Cleveland? And then people are going to ask that question. Well, why did you move if you're trying to fight and get your daughter? Don't you want to be close to her to visit? Yeah, something's off. Something is way off. Once again, did Tiara ever ask the godmom to get her daughter back? Did she ever just say, I want her back? Did they sign a legal document? She tells us in this interview also that she was unstable. So she really wasn't in a good place, you know, beforehand and I guess pregnant with the kid. Before she had the kid, KEI'MANI, she was not mentally stable. So possibly she wasn't mentally stable when she gave birth. And as most of you know, women do get postpartum syndrome. So did she have postpartum syndrome after she gave birth to KEI'MANI. Let's see, what else do I have here? We got something written here and I can't really read. Oh, a basketball coach, she said she don't know if it's a male or a female, made a report pertaining to allegations of abuse 1 week beforehand. And the same day that the child died, DHS was supposed to come. But that don't make sense because I thought the child died on a Sunday. But she said she's supposed to came on a Tuesday. So what are we saying? The mother and Darnell killed the little girl for some type of secret of child molestation because the social worker was coming. Usually social workers don't tell you when they're coming, when they get a call for child abuse, Tiara. I know because I've called on someone before. And I don't think DHS called them to tell them they were coming. Hello, Patty. And I'm sure the basketball coach is feeling really bad, knowing how Tiara died. Tiara tells us she was in foster care herself at the age of 2.5 years of age, a little over 2 years old. When she was retrieved, she said she was beaten, bloodied, bruised, and she was in the care of Dorothy. She also said she was abused in foster care and those parents were never prosecuted and physically, sexually touched at that place. She was in 42 homes in her years before becoming an adult. 42 foster care homes. She was 2 years and 2 months old when she was removed from Dorothy. Once again, bloody, bruised, and beaten. When she goes back into her files, this was the information that was relayed to her pertaining to why she was removed from Dorothy and went into foster care. She can't understand why Dorothy would have been given custody considering she didn't raise any of her children. And that's a very good question. And it was also asked in this interview here by a reporter, why did Dorothy get custody of KEI'MANI when she already had lost custody of her own said children? She said she found out that KEI'MANI was with Dorothy at the age of 11. So that means the godmom never told her. And why not? I think she said Dorothy told her. So obviously she's had an on and off relationship with Dorothy. Dorothy got custody of KEI'MANI August 24th. But was it full legal custody, binding with a document between the godmother and Dorothy and or the state and Dorothy? The way it's looking to me is that nobody wanted KEI'MANI. I think everybody was in it for the money. That was the same information given by the mother during her interview on YouTube, that everybody was just using KEI'MANI for a welfare check, food stamps, and foster care check. Jazz comes on this interview as well. She's the friend of Tiara. And she also says that it was all about the money pertaining to Dorothy. That was her only intent to raise KEI'MANI. She was greedy. And also there's information here that says that Tiara, if she didn't give the mother what she wanted, I guess that's Dorothy. Sorry, everybody, I'm buffering. Sorry about that. And I'm only a few feet from the router, so I don't know what's going on. But anyway, that's what Tiara tells us, that she was basically threatened, by Dorothy too. And I think the godmother as well. She didn't give these people what they wanted, money, gifts and things. That was the threat to turn KEI'MANI over to the Department of Human Services. Now, the godmama decided she did not want KEI'MANI because her daughter, she had a breakdown when her daughter had a baby, so she could not take care of KEI'MANI, this Monique Taylor. She took the child to Dorothy and put her on the doorstep, didn't ring the bell, didn't tell her she was coming. She just left the child there with her belongings. Now, everything I'm reading to you is from the version of Tiara. Feel free to go over to that YouTube channel, Black CEO 2.0. He has the said interviews with Tiara. It was also alleged that when this woman was taking care of KEI'MANI, this Monique person, that she would only put food at the bottom of the refrigerator, just low enough for the child to eat little, lunch meats, Lunchable type food, cheese, but she was eating lobster and steak. Wow. Tiara says she found out later, she had no idea all this was going on pertaining to her child. She offered for a flight for her and the kid to come see her because the lady said her car had broken down, but she reneged and didn't show up. Why not? Why didn't she show up? Why not fly down? Once again, Dorothy got the child around 6 or 7 years old, and that's when she learned of all the drama that went on with the Monique lady and her said daughter. It was asked about last contact. The 11th birthday, Tiara found out Kay was with Dorothy. 1 month before her 11th birthday is when Tiara found out that KEI'MANI was in Dorothy's care before the child's 11th birthday. And also she says you can go over to her TikTok to see that said 11th birthday party. She said both of them had jobs, Monique and Dorothy, so there was no need for them trying to gouge her for money. But that's the whole point. They're going to get the money the best way they can. So if they know they can get it from the biological mother, they're going to ask the mother for money. See, this is where none of this makes any sense. The kid's bouncing around from place to place every 6, 7 years. She's with somebody else. And then these people are trying to, they're using the child as bait to get money from Tiara. This is why Tiara should have been applying to the courts to get her child. This is where many of us are confused. Well, why didn't you ever go to the courts to try to get your kid? It doesn't take 13 years to get your kid. And if there were no legal binding documents between any parties and yourself, then you should have went to the state. That's why I believe the state had to be involved at some point, which they admit in this interview that they intervened when KEI'MANI was an infant, but he did not describe that situation in this presser. Tiara says these two didn't need money, but once again, like I said, they were using her to give them money for themselves, KEI'MANI or whomever. She said she knew how diabolical her mother was when this Monique lady decided to tell a story that when she and Dot were young, Dot snatched some money off a young lady at a bar. It was her birthday, it was a birthday party, and she snatched the money that was pinned to her and ran outside, and the girl went out there, I guess, to try to retrieve her money, and she was trying to fight the young lady. And she said Monique laughed about that incident pertaining to the behavior of Dorothy. So basically, she was telling the host of the YouTube channel, Dorothy don't need a reason to fight. It's just who she is. She's just diabolical. As far as seeking revenge against her, she don't need a reason. Now, I was asked about a birthday party for KEI'MANI, and she also believes that, yes, Dorothy was planning a party because she had mentioned it to her in February about asking for funds to help out with money for the birthday party. Okay. Trying to keep up, everybody. Trying to keep up. Got so many notes. Sorry. She said she believes something went terribly wrong. Yeah. Something went terribly wrong. Your daughter was murdered. And she also believes her mother is involved in the murder of KEI'MANI. Will she file a lawsuit, fight CPS? I do believe she's going to do that. Right now, she's needing money for a lawyer to go to probate court, which was supposed to be today, if I'm not mistaken. So did she win in court to seize KEI'MANI's estate, which would be her body, so she could have a funeral. That's the reason why the child hasn't had a funeral, because there's legal wranglings pertaining to who should get the body of KEI'MANI LATIGUE. Also, she said she had things in the closet pertaining to Easter, Miss Dorothy. So I think Dorothy's like a lot of people. She played, what's the word I'm looking for? Just a two-headed monster. One minute she acts kind and nice, and then the next minute she's, beating up the kid and fighting the kid. And then we've learned too, sometimes you can't leave children alone just because a child seems like, well, they're old enough to be left alone. That does not mean they're mentally equipped. I've had people say that. They have children that are 13, 14, but they said, hey, I wouldn't leave this child alone because they're not mature enough to be left alone. And it takes a noble person to admit that, hey, love my kid to death, but I wouldn't leave him or her alone to their own device. And that's true. Many children don't need to be left alone. Perhaps this child shouldn't have been left alone. I'm not here to say she was a bad kid or any of that. I don't know her, but you can see no matter what her disposition was as a child, her attitude, she shouldn't have been left alone because she's now dead. And she wasn't in the best care of Dorothy. And this Darnell person, he didn't have no business being in her care either, being in her peripheral. She tells us once again, all 5 children were in foster care when she came home at 19. She came home, I guess, out of foster care at the age of 19. The youngest boy, brother, got sent to Arizona when she was removed. So I guess Dorothy didn't want that baby child to be taken out of, put into foster care. Dorothy sent the youngest boy out to Arizona. I think she says here with Dot's mom. Once again, did she ever ask Dorothy for KEI'MANI when she realized that she had her in her custody? She can't. She also told the host of the show she can't give any answers pertaining to Dorothy's life, because naturally she only lived with Dorothy until she was 2 years old. We did learn that Dot did whoop the child. The states mentioned that also here in this interview. They gave her instructions on how to whoop the child without showing bruises. Now, what I found interesting in this interview, we hear that Tiara talks about how she disciplined her children. She makes them stand in a corner and hold books or hold something in her hand. She says she gives them physical punishment. See, one could say that's abuse because, one, we don't know how long she lets her child, allows her children to stand in the corner. Then we don't know how long they're in the corner, what they're holding, foot up, foot, you know what I'm saying? Stand on one foot, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 15 minutes. How old are the children? Does she make them hold books, bags, what? Because we've heard of children who stood in the corner and had to stand on one foot and hold things, and they were in those corners for hours, and arms and legs were damn near limp and numb. So I found that interesting when she said that during that interview. I don't whoop my kids, I don't put my hands on them, but I make them go stand in the corner and hold something. I thought, well, that could be construed as abuse too, depending on what it is they're holding and how long they're standing in the corner, Miss Tiara. We learned that Darnell has 3 girls, and KEI'MANI was the oldest of the 3 girls. Yeah. Putting it mildly. Just rehashing everything, everybody. Rehashing, trying to go over everything. Once again, she believes Dot is involved. Believes Dot was possibly called to the house after the murder. She says, after whatever happened, she believes they tried to get rid of KEI'MANI. What is scary about this story of this child being allegedly, no, I don't want to say allegedly, she was raped, is what the news reports are saying. She was raped, okay? Neck punctured with a sharp object to the point where her head was almost severed off and hands cut off. The house where she was found belongs to Dot's mother, belonged to her, so it was in the family. So there's some correlation right there. Now, one could say, she could point the finger and say, oh, well, Darnell knew that, so he was trying to implicate me in the crime. That's why he took KEI'MANI and took her to this old house belonging to my family. Believe what you want to believe, everybody. But it is highly suspicious. And coincidental. We also learned she's the one that called the police to say the daughter was in the house. So how would she know that the child was in the house? Did she get wind that somebody was found in the house and just assumed it was KEI'MANI, or she knew that the child was placed there? Did she help Darnell put the child in there? Did she help with the murder? Did she help with the disposal of the child? Tell him to go take the child there. Did she even go to work? Will we find out information verifiable that Dorothy actually went to work? What's the truth? Tiara believes they took the child to that house so evidence would be destroyed in the fire, which anybody with common sense knows in order to set a fire, that would be the motive. So a persons, detectives, agents can't get a rendering, but that's what happens when you're a fool. You can still learn things about a body, even if the body was burned up in a fire. Stay woke now. But this is what happens when you're dumb and you don't know forensics. This is how people have put together cases, detectives, that a person was shot because the bullet was possibly still inside of the person's head. Then they can learn things about your airway and your lungs, that you were either alive or dead before the fire. Checkmate, have mercy. How about that? So let's say Dorothy planned this crime or came in at the end, this murder of KEI'MANI. Was she ever going to report the little girl missing, since Tiara believes her mother is involved? She calls her unholy border, whatever that's supposed to mean. She wants to thank everybody for their support. She's never seen support like this before. But she wants to thank everybody that's been rallying for her daughter in the community. I think Tiara lives in a bubble because many people have supported children who have been murdered and missing. People have come out, searched. Other organizations have come out to search for children, such as in the Sebastian Rogers case. Many cases of missing children. People have rallied together to search for the people, even with adults. People have set up, GoFundMes, rallies, prayer vigils. So I don't know what she's saying here about the people coming out of Toledo. I'm looking at this girl kind of sideways, like you don't know of anybody coming out in the community to look and help find a child or rally for a child that's been murdered. That sounds very strange to me. But once again, she says she's so grateful, 100%. Now she's trying to set up some foundations and things for the child and nonprofits. And where I have a problem is that you haven't even gotten the estate settled to claim the body. So I wouldn't be worrying about foundations and organizations and safe havens for children abused. I would do one thing at a time, which would be securing the body of the baby. Then I would worry about getting money for the funeral. You just take baby steps. But she made sure to ask the host of the YouTube channel, Black CEO 2.0, if she could put her Cash App information and everything in the chat, which some might think it can come off a certain way because she wanted to let everybody know she's doing this for the public. Y'all is what she said. I didn't care to come on here and tell this, and this, but you all had so many questions and I wanted some things answered and brought out. But did we get the truth? That's the whole point. So it doesn't really matter that she did an interview on YouTube. The point is, do you believe the information in the YouTube conversation? And the host going back and forth with the chat and blocking people and worrying about this and that, and people be respectful. Well, people are going to ask questions. And this goes back to what I keep saying about these type of cases. You can't just leave her out of the loop and say, well, she ain't the one that murdered KEI'MANI. Don't focus on her. We have to focus on her because she's the start of this story. She gave birth to her and she ended up not raising her for some reason. And I don't think she's telling us the truth to how her baby got out of her custody. And it needs to be said and it needs to be known. To me, this is just a repeat of the Cal City Boys and Ron Dean. You want to come run up and talk to the cameras and cry and moan on court TV, but then you don't want nobody to ask you any questions about your life and what you've been doing and why you don't have custody of your children and why you didn't fight to get custody of your children. Because you're not going to tell us the truth that the state wouldn't give you custody. And I think that's possibly what has happened here with Miss Tiara. The state got involved initially, and they probably saw something in her demeanor and the care of the kid and told her, you can't have your kid because there's something missing from birth up until 13 years of age. And we also learned that KEI'MANI just had a birthday last week, and she didn't even live to see her 14th birthday. We also learned this woman paid child support to Dorothy last year. She was in a hole about $2,600 or so. She's paying $900. We also learned that Darnell was not paying child support. And now we learned in this interview, he wasn't even named as a father on legal documents. Why not? And I asked you all those questions last week in my video pertaining to this nonsense. She also saying don't donate to any GoFundMes because she's not affiliated, but with one. And there's a certain lady's name here. Let me get this name right. I think her name is Katrina Moore. If you see any GoFundMe set up with this lady, you feel free to donate to help, because she said she was trying to get a lawyer for probate court, which was supposed to be today, to try to get KEI'MANI's estate. Just going over my notes, making sure I haven't left anything out. You have to be careful with donating money for anything. I don't care what it's for. Somebody said they need a house, the house flooded, they got cancer, because you don't know people and you don't know what's the truth. And we've learned that people will set up a GoFundMe and there's nothing wrong with them. Then there'll be other people that set it up just so they can make money off the situation, a cousin, a aunt, a brother. You have to be very careful with donating money. Just so you know. Catherine Moore, that's her name. It's the Cash App. So she says you're not asking for any help right now, but later, you know, she wants to set up some organizations in Safe Haven in KEI'MANI's name, and also a bill in KEI'MANI's name, so this incident won't happen again. She also wants to set up a P.O. box, so if people want to donate things in KEI'MANI's name to her, any item that you donate, she's going to put in a room for her daughter. She says she's going to be moving soon, and she's going to have a room set up just for KEI'MANI as if she was still alive. And that Black CEO 2.0 will have that said information on his network. And she asked him for permission to put it in his chat and on his channel, and he agreed. Once again, she's trying to secure the estate of KEI'MANI. I believe she's supposed to attend court today in Ohio to take care of these legal wranglings in court. Right now, as I told you, there's no funeral date, but this one company funeral home is allegedly supposed to be having the services. But as I told you at the beginning of this live stream, there's been no date set for a private or public funeral. So did she get KEI'MANI's estate in probate court today? I don't know. Now, one could ask, why hasn't Dorothy made funeral arrangements for the child? Is she fighting Tiara in court, probate court, for her remains and estate and her name? Because naturally, people will be using her name for different things. She said they had T-shirts with her name on it. You know, there was a big old mess about that with Summer Wells. People putting things with Summer Wells' name on logos and T-shirts and sweatshirts and things. And naturally, parents can fight for that because that is their child's name and you didn't get permission to use their name for, copyright reasons. This Katrina Moore is a cousin, so this is who she's trusting to navigate a GoFundMe for the child, funds for KEI'MANI's behalf, she said. And she said that near the end of the live, which I found really interesting, because you started off with, I don't want money, we're not doing this for attention, I'm not doing this for clout, but at the end you made sure that he gets all your personal information for Cash App, P.O. Box, and any monies for what she said, for KEI'MANI, funds for KEI'MANI on KEI'MANI's behalf, and the family. She threw that in there, the family. So one can say, well, you made sure to say that at the end of his live stream for the family. Who are you speaking of? You and your children? You want people to donate money to you and your family for what reason? If you work and have a job, you don't need any money. And see, that's the one thing I said about donating money. You don't really know where the money goes. And we learned that with Ryan Dean. I had that through a source. She was asking for donations and money and didn't even have custody of her fucking kids. And my understanding, she took the donations that she was supposed to be getting a lawyer with, and she bought a fucking car. How about that? Yes, Queen got the tea. And she was sitting in a party and function trying to figure out how she was going to pay her car note. And the person made sure to come back and make sure Queen got that information. So this is why I said you have to be very careful about donating money to people, because really, somebody might take her case pro bono due to the fact, they want to help her. People do it all the time. So will somebody step up to help her? Advocate for she and this child without her having to pay a finder's fee. Possibly, never know. What if Tiara don't get the estate? She don't get KEI'MANI's estate. Then what's going to happen to the body of the child? I'm assuming it would be in the care of Miss Dorothy. And Tiara has made it very clear in this interview, she does not want Dorothy getting the child's body at all. So what happened in court today? Will she get the child's body? If not, I'm assuming Dorothy will get the kid's body, unless somebody decides to contest it and contest Dorothy getting the body. Don't know. She says she will not be doing any more interviews, and she just wants to give her daughter a proper send-off. Okay? And that's that. That's the latest, everybody. All my notes. Make sure I told everything. So to wrap up that, this is the part 2 of Tiara's interview with Black CEO 2.0. Feel free to go to his channel to check out that said interview. She basically wants her child's estate. She wants to give her child a proper funeral. She needs money for a lawyer for the probate court, which was today. Don't know if she got the money. Don't know if she got the estate of the child. But she wants to give her child a private and a public funeral. She's thanking everybody in the community that helped. She also believes her mother is involved in the crime, and she has some knowledge of the crime. So what is the truth? Is Dorothy LATIGUE involved in the murder of KEI'MANI? Did she orchestrate it, plan it? Did she know that this man was molesting the child? How long was he molesting the child? Was it a first-time event? Things went wrong. The girl fought back, said she's going to tell. Why was she murdered? What was the motive? Thousands of questions, no answers. How did Tiara lose custody of the child? Why didn't she ever fight to get her child back? Why didn't she ever ask the godmother to get her child back? Did she ever ask and the woman didn't want to give her back? Did they have a legal document signed between one another? Why did the woman take the child and give the child to Dorothy but didn't tell Tiara? I find all that strange and bizarre. Then this on and off relationship with Dorothy. Sometimes she blocked her, sometimes she had contact with her. Then we also learned Dorothy was telling people to watch Tiara or watch the daughter because she didn't want the KEI'MANI talking to Tiara. This is some weird shit. It's like she hated her own daughter. And then she said also family members told her that they believed Dorothy was jealous of her. So I was like, how could she be jealous of her when she didn't even raise her? She left her house at 2.5 years old. 2 years old, 2 years and 2 months. So how could you be jealous of a 2-year-old? Or did she grow to be jealous of her as she blossomed and became a young woman? I don't know. But this happens. Women being jealous of their girl children. As they get older, they see their attributes, how they look, how they talk, how they carry themselves, their stature, and they're, I guess, missing their young life, their youth, and they're looking at a person that looks similar to them or look just like them. They want to be them. And we've seen some harrowing cases of a mother using her own daughter's profile on a date site to lure a young man. She lured a young man in and he ended up murdering a man because the guy thought he was dating this girl, but he had never met her. And later he found out he was talking to her mother. Very wicked case out of, I believe it was Virginia or West Virginia. So see, you don't know people. In this case, here is another case of not knowing people. I think this case is a double-edged sword. It's a case of a child being tossed around like a hot potato. People were only using her for money. And when they tired of her, they passed her on to the next person. And that person had no use for her either. And then they brought in another demon seed by the name of Darnell Jones. He came into the picture at some point, and he violated this child in the worst way than what Dorothy did, to our knowledge. And now she's deceased. So things can happen where one person has done the ultimate sin, which was what Darnell did to the child, times 20. And then you have the grandmother who was no good, just old dirty mutt too. And she may have knowledge of what Darnell was doing, maybe not, but she wasn't a good person to have legal custody. So it was a double-edged sword. The child was doomed from the beginning. It's not to say she couldn't have been out in the world and done great things. She couldn't have been in a proper home, but she didn't get that opportunity. And somebody failed her times 20. She was failed by her mother. She was failed by this Monique person, godmother. She was also failed by the adoptive mother, because you didn't jump in and try to take her either. And then she was failed by Dorothy and failed by Darnell. And whoever else had knowledge that she was being beat up by Dorothy wasn't happy. And if you had knowledge that she was being molested, you failed her. So this is a very sick case of a child failed. Now, I don't know the legal role of DHS. They say they were only in child's life at birth and 2 other times, 23 and 24. But it's a little too late for that now because she's dead. She's dead. And you all allowed her to stay in the care of Dorothy, and you all was giving Dorothy instructions on how to whoop her, and now she's dead. So whether she killed this kid, aided in the killing with Darnell, she still didn't have no business with Dorothy. And this is what I keep talking about on this network. One thing begets another. You're over here in a bad shape, and then another devil will come in and intervene, and he or she adds on to the trauma. So now it's a double threat. Do you all see where I'm going? It's a double threat. So she's already in bad care, then here comes a man that's supposed to be her daddy, and he's inflicting harm against her. There was no way out, because if the child wasn't willing to tell the truth that she was being abused by the grandmother and this man, sadly, she doomed herself by not speaking up. And it's a sad thing to say, but children are children. Every child does not react the same. Some children tell, some don't. And I think the child probably didn't tell anybody because she didn't want to be moved around. She didn't want to be in foster care, and that's understandable. But look at the price that's paid by not speaking up. This is why you have to teach children to tell. Mentally abused, sexually abused, you need to tell the truth. If your parents have unseedy, savory company coming around, you need to know. And I also mentioned in that interview, Dorothy had a man and a woman living in that house that were crackheads. So this child was subjected to street people living in her house. So who knows what she saw and heard and what they've been doing around the child. And that needs to be learned as well, investigated. If Dorothy had a drug problem, alcohol abuse problem, if she was bringing different men in the house, if she was selling the child for prostitution, all that needs to be investigated. And I hope a thorough investigation into Dorothy's habits will come to light. Because I got a feeling she's a street person, she has street ways, and she ain't stopped none of those ways. Because as the saying goes, old habits die hard. I think Dorothy is like a lot of people out here. She's a hood rat. She's an old, dusty, dirty mop, dusty hood rat. She's a swindler, con artist, and she's probably done other unsavory things. And that's why I say that they take a deeper look into Dorothy. You're probably going to hear some things that aren't so nice. I think she's a street hustler. I think she would do anything for the almighty dollar, which would be sell her kid, sell her leg, sell her arm. That's Dorothy. And when you look at her in those interviews, she's shaking her head, about to pop off her damn neck. She seems very angry and defensive. And she's angry and defensive because her secret is out that DHS was involved in her life with KEI'MANI. And now the world knows. And she knows that once you open Pandora's box, you can't close it. So now people are looking at her and wondering what type of person she is and what was she actually doing with KEI'MANI and what else did she allow to be done to KEI'MANI. Exactly. Like, share, subscribe, drop your comments below this video, take the polls on my community page, and check out my extensive library of 3,000 plus videos. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $BigAngie129 Cash App. Prayers for justice for KEI'MANI LATIGUE. I'm not here to say who should have custody of her body because I don't know these people. I don't know Tiara and I don't know Dorothy. I don't trust Dorothy as far as I can throw her. As far as Tiara, I'm on the fence about her as well. But I know the child needs to be buried, so I'm gonna leave it at that. But all I'm gonna tell any of you out here, be very careful donating any money to anyone that you do not know. And that goes for this lady here, the biological mother of KEI'MANI. Because we don't know her and we don't really know her true intentions. And I know sometimes people like to, push the cart before the horse. So when I get information pertaining to what happened in probate court, I will bring you that said information. But I'm praying that the child will be properly laid to rest because the longer they keep her body out, the longer it won't look good to where you won't even be able to have an open casket with a veil. So due to the fact that she was, mutilated from, neck up, we don't know the state of how she looks at this point. So, it's up to whomever has the body, what they decide to do with her as far as an open casket. This is a horrible, horrific case. And sadly, there are other cases out here as we speak. And all we're doing right now is waiting for the lid to pop off. Because if it happened to KEI'MANI, Harmony Montgomery, other children, you should know there are other kids out here in they're in harm's way. They're in a dire situation. People are standing by watching, not saying anything, scared to call, scared to get involved, don't really care. You're just waiting for a worst case scenario. And that's exactly what happened here. This child could be alive today, thriving. But people turn a blind eye. Now everybody wants to pop up balloons and teddy bears and talk about justice and prayers. Prayers for what? Prayers that Darnell goes down? Well, rightfully so. But this child's no longer here, and she should be here. And she was failed miserably. And there's no going back. So this task force, the DHS is trying to muscle up to do what exactly? What is it that you all are going to do and change so we don't have another KEI'MANI LATIGUE story? That's the point. The public, when are you going to decide to get involved and say, hey, something ain't right over here? Let me call the police. I ain't calling that 1-800 number. And that's my advice too. Bypass that number. You see a child wandering, hungry, not fed, abused, snotty nose, hair on top of their head, call the police. Don't call the 1-800 number. Bypass all that fluff. Because the police can see something that nobody's going to see. They're going to see the circumstances at that moment. They're going to walk in at that moment. And that's usually how most children get removed from their parents' care. The police was called and they walked on the scene and saw children wandering, children not fed, children looking sick, dehydrated, underweight, and there's no covering it up. Thank you for your time. You've been listening to the Vault XL.